Miss Stanley.
I was just saying I apologize for my voice, which you couldn't hear, but I have bad allergies, but I do feel better than I sound, and hopefully I won't have a coughing fit like I did in the kids' presentation. So with all that said, I'm going to share my screen with you guys and kind of go over the college process. I know some of you guys have gone to college as parents, but things have obviously changed, and then others of you have never been to college, and so this process is pretty much new to everyone. Let me pull this up. Um, okay, sorry. Okay. So can you guys see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks. Okay, so the whole point of this information is to help you guys to know how to help your seniors. And so that's me. I'm the counselor. You may know I've just come back from maternity leave. I've been for about 2 weeks, but the timing is decent for college readiness purposes because a lot of the stuff is happening right now. So my responsibilities are college and career readiness, socio-emotional health. I'm also the dual credit liaison. I'm in charge of the Apex online learning and a variety of other random things that come up. Miss Brooks, this is our college advisor from HISD. She helps me out about once a week, and she's a great resource for the kids if they can't get a hold of me. So all of the kids received their transcripts today, so you may want to look over that with them. It talks about all the credits they need to graduate. So obviously, before we talk about college or the next steps, we need to know that the kids are going to graduate. So the big things to know are they need 4 credits of English, 4 credits of math, 4 credits of science, 4 credits of social studies, half a credit of health, 1 credit of PE, 2 credits of foreign language, 1 fine arts credit. It has to be the first level, and then 5.5 credits of electives. We also need to make sure there's a 0.5 next to each of the courses to just show that they actually got credit. Some of our kids have an NG, which means they have too many unexcused absences in a course, and that's something they're going to have to remedy in order to get credit for that class. We'll be giving out more information on how they do that soon, but the sooner they fix it, the better. So every student in high school in Texas receives an endorsement, and so we have the STEM endorsement if they pass all their engineering or cyber classes. We do not have the business and industry anymore. You can get arts and humanities if they pass 5 social studies, 4 foreign language, or art 1 through 4. We don't have public services. And then multidisciplinary studies everybody gets because it's just getting the 4 credits in the core courses. Now, endorsements are kind of like college majors, but way less important. I've never seen a college really care about them, but we do want the kids to get as many as they can. So, what college should my child attend? You need to consider some different things. What are your child's future plans? How can you support your child financially? This is a big one. Their college major and the requirements of the college. And we'll talk a little bit about all those things. So there's different types of school, and which type of school they want to go to may depend on what they want to study. There's community college, state schools, private schools, selective universities, and then test optional, which actually more schools are doing that due to COVID-19. So community colleges, they're low cost. They have 2-year programs that often can transfer to universities, and they also have certificate programs. So let's say your child is passionate about welding or passionate about auto repair or wants to be a medical assistant. They can do 2-year programs at community colleges, and after those 2 years, they can go to the workforce. This can be a great option for certain kids that have certain passions. So a kid that wants to be a welder should not be spending 4 years at University of Houston. That's just not the right place. They need to go to one of these type of schools. So it's important to know what your child's goals are You help them to figure out what colleges they should apply to. So state schools, um, our kids receive in-state tuition, which a lot of these schools, as an estimate, would be between $10,000 to $12,000 a year. Some of these schools do provide less scholarships than a private school might provide, but they have a lot of different areas of study. It's also important to think about what major your student wants to have when you choose these schools. For example, criminal justice, Sam Houston is one of the best schools in the nation, and UHD also has a good program, whereas U of H does not have a criminal justice program. So even if your child likes U of H, if they want to do criminal justice, that may not be the right place for them. So selective state schools, they have the same cost as the other state schools, but they're harder to get into. A&M is automatic if you're in the top 10%, and UT is automatic if you're in the top 6%. But if you're outside of that, you'd have a little bit less of a chance of getting in. It's not impossible, but they're going to look at a lot of their essays and different things to decide whether they want to get in. So that's what it means by holistic review process. They're going to look at essays, test scores, grades, extracurriculars, all of those things, just like they would do at Harvard, and use that to decide if your student gets into one of these two schools. I'm a little partial to UT because that's where I went. Private schools, these tend to be the most expensive, although they often offer good scholarship packages. They have very good alumni networks. So there are a lot of benefits to going to a private school if you can afford it, but it's really important to kind of look at that financial aid. And they may offer you $40,000, but if the cost of attendance is $80,000, that's $40,000 your family would have to pay. This is something to think about. Now, selective schools are usually private schools also, but they have a higher standards and they have a lower acceptance rate. So I know a lot of our kids are interested in Rice because it's local and it's a really good school, but notice that the acceptance rate is only about 11%. We have had valedictorians that have been rejected from Rice. We have also had kids get into Rice who weren't the valedictorians. So they're going to look at the kid as a whole, grades, SAT, essays, extracurriculars, all of that. Letters of recommendation is another big one. So these schools often have very big scholarships. A lot of them are called need blind, which means if you get accepted, and let's say a parent makes $20,000 and can't afford to contribute anything to college, the college will pay everything. So basically, it doesn't mean that everyone that goes to these schools goes for free, but they look at how much money your family makes and they offer you scholarships accordingly. Now, these offer great connections for future opportunities with the alumni networks, and they have very high graduation rates. The graduation rate at U of H is only about 50%. I'm sure all of you guys know someone who's gone to U of H and hasn't finished. Partly it's the commuter school, partly it's a big school, so it's easy to get lost or stop going. Whereas these schools are usually smaller, have more faculty, and if you miss class, someone's going to ask you about it. So it's important to look at the automatic acceptance requirements for schools. Now, I haven't looked up the data for this current year, so this may have changed. It's best to consult the school's website to be sure. But usually, the higher your rank, the lower the SAT score you have to get. And the lower the rank, the higher the SAT score you have to get. Some schools are test optional right now, but those usually are going to require essays to make up for the SAT. I think it's best that most kids submit their SAT score if they're good. So, what are colleges looking for? The class rank and GPA, which is pretty much already set. It will change after the end of this semester, but students apply with their current class rank and GPA that was finalized at the end of their junior year. Again, SAT score, although like I said, some schools are test optional right now, their extracurriculars and the essays if they require an essay. Now, not all schools do require an essay. So, like I talked about earlier, make sure the school has the program your student wants. I talked about criminal justice. Another one would be nursing program. So, for nursing programs, it's kind of different. You go to school for 2 years taking heavy sciences, and then you apply to a nursing school. So it might be part of the same school that your student is already at, like SFA or UT, or even U of H has a nursing school right now. Or your student could go to UHD for 2 years and then apply to one of the 12 nursing schools in Houston, or any other school like HCC for 2 years and then apply to nursing school. So again, what your child wants to do will dictate where they want to go to school and what path they take. This is a big question a lot of our parents ask is, should I let my student go out of state? In the end, this is a family choice and it's something you guys really should make together. In general, the students from Eastwood who have gone out of state have benefited greatly from it. They've made great connections, they've had good jobs after college, and a lot of them move back to Houston afterwards and are with their families again. A lot of the schools out of state have better graduation rates, and the student will end up making a higher salary. Like I said, that's up to you. I would say don't discourage your student from applying out of state, because you might as well see if the student gets in and what kind of financial aid they get. But you don't have to make that final decision until March or April. How many schools should my child apply for? Most students should apply to 5 to 7 schools, including one safety school that they're pretty sure they can get into, that they meet the requirements. In the past, for a lot of our students, that safety school was UHD. Although, to be honest, this year we have some of the lowest GPAs I've ever seen in a senior class. We also have some of the highest GPAs I've ever seen in a senior class. But some of our students with the lower class rank and the lower GPA may need to go to a community college before they get accepted to a 4-year university. The good news is if you're a transfer student, it's like your high school career is pretty much erased. They basically only look at that year of college that you've done. So if a student is at the bottom of the class at Eastwood, but goes to HCC and does very, very well, there's a good chance they could be accepted to U of H the next year. I advise all students to think very carefully before applying to a school where they fall far below the requirements. Sometimes students think it's like a lottery, like, hey, I'll just try for Harvard, maybe they'll accept me. That is not at all how it works. There's a formula to how they accept students. And if a student is far below the average student qualifications, they're basically wasting their time. So for example, if a student's kind of in the middle of the pack at Eastwood, they may have a chance at U of H. That could be a good choice for them, but they probably don't have a good chance at Harvard. And so that's probably going to be a waste of their time. Whereas if they're at the top of the class, then maybe Harvard is a good option for them to apply to. College visits. I highly, highly recommend you take your student for a college visit. Most college visits are pretty much outside, so it's less risk of COVID. There are virtual versions, but there is something about being on campus. Students get 2 excused college visits per semester. They just need to let the school know first and bring in proof. Some schools offer fly-in options where the students can actually be flown in for free to see a college, but you do have to apply for those. Like I said, some of you guys did go to college, but a lot has changed since you went to college or I went to college. And so I'm going to go over the admissions process for you. So there are some changes due to COVID-19. Some schools are test optional, but those schools are going to rely heavily on the essays. And so depending on your student's strengths, sometimes the SAT is a better option. Some schools are requiring the SAT, but if you haven't taken it yet, they'll let you be accepted on the condition that you do take it. And then certain deadlines have been pushed back. The best information on all of this would be on each school's website, and they may be a little different. So online applications. This is the way you apply to college now. There are 2 main online applications, the Common App and Apply Texas, and they work very similarly. Basically, they're a large amount of general questions like address, phone number, the classes they took in high school, their extracurriculars, things like that, that will be needed for every application. So the first time a kid completes a Apply Texas application, it may take as long as an hour or more. But after they finish one application and press submit, they have the option to copy to other applications. And so probably 90% of the application will be filled in for the next school, and they'll just have to answer a few questions that are specific to that college. One thing to note, the website for Apply Texas is not applytexas.org anymore. The believe it's goapplytexas.org. So double check that for your student, or they're going to be filling out something that they can't submit. The common application is for the more selective schools. It's like Apply Texas, but has a more detailed questions and involves essays. It also involves teacher recommendation letters and a recommendation letter from me. So that application is going to take longer, but it's similar in the Apply Texas application that after you do it once, it's going to be a lot shorter for future applications. So should my student submit their application today? Probably not. It is better to wait and make sure you have a really good application and not just submit it as soon as possible. Most college admissions representatives don't actually start even reading applications until November 1st. It's better to spend time creating a great application instead of just being the first one with a mediocre application. And I am available to meet with you and your students to talk about their applications if you contact me. These are my deadlines for Eastwood. Try to apply by October 22nd or Halloween. We say the 22nd because the week of Halloween tends to be kind of crazy. But if students meet that deadline, they should meet the early deadlines for pretty much every college. Again, it is good to check each individual college's website. For your financial aid application, my deadline is Thanksgiving. The priority deadline is January 15th. So if a student finishes their financial aid application by Thanksgiving, they're well ahead of that deadline and they're eligible for all of the money because they have applied on time. Scholarships happen throughout the year and their deadlines proceed accordingly. So this is the extra stuff your child needs to send to each school after they apply. Every year I have students that forget one part of their application, and it can be the difference between getting in or not. I had a student who didn't end up getting into A&M, even though he was qualified, because he did not submit his SAT scores to them and did not read the emails where they asked him for them. So a student needs to submit their transcript. They get that through the Eastwood website. They need to submit their SAT scores. They do that through the College Board website. And they need to submit a fee or a fee waiver. If they qualify for a fee waiver, usually families whose income is less than $60,000 for a family of 4, then they do not have to pay the fees to the colleges. They can get their fee waivers from the College Board website or from me. The fees for colleges vary from maybe $25 to $75. If your child has to pay a fee, it's because of your income. And so that's something to be prepared for when you decide how many schools they can apply to. Sorry. After the student applies, they need to check their email regularly. They need to check the school's online portal. They'll get a password and a login for that. And that can even be where they find out if they get into the school, but it shows if they have any missing information. It's very important to get that turned in on time. So when will we find out? It really depends on the school and student qualifications. So let's say your student is number 2 and they're applying to U of H, they may find out within a week because they're an automatic acceptance. If your student is number 50 and applying to U of H, it may take longer to find out because they're going to look at their application more carefully. Students should hear by March or April at the latest. I do remember when I applied to UT, I was not an automatic acceptance. And so a bunch of my friends found out early and I didn't find out till spring break. It was really hard to wait, but I still did get in. So not hearing does not mean they're not getting in. Financial aid packages will be given at that point as well. So that way you guys can make your real decision about what school works the best for your child and your family. So financial aid. Everyone should fill out the FAFSA or TASFA no matter how much money the parents make. The FAFSA is for students who are citizens or eligible non-citizens, like have a green card or permanent residence card. TASFA is students who are undocumented or DACA students. The TASFA is a paper application and the FAFSA is an online application. So the student makes an FSA ID account and the one parent they live with makes an FSA ID account. Now, if the parent is undocumented, the parent can't make the account, but they will sign an actual paper that's printed out from FAFSA. So that's the main difference. One thing to say, guys, is be as truthful as possible with FAFSA and ideally help your students complete it because they're going to need your tax information. Um, if you lie on the FAFSA, it is possible that the government can find out and you will not be your child will not be eligible for financial aid. It's definitely not worth it. Another thing to consider is even if you make above that 60,000 mark, you can still end up getting some money from FAFSA, even if you don't get the grants and loans that are grants that other students might get. When I was in grad school, I didn't qualify for any free money, but they did have a scholarship fund for people in my major, and everyone who did FAFSA got $1,500. So I was very glad that I did do that at that time. So what is FAFSA? It's the free application for federal student aid. It does not give the money. Basically, it would be way too much trouble for each school to do the due diligence, to check your taxes, to check the records, to make sure you're being honest. And so the government does that for all the colleges and then gives them the information. Then schools put that information into their databases and use that to figure out how much financial aid they're going to offer your student. So again, I kind of explained this already. FAFSA versus TASFA. At Eastwood, we can help your student with either. And we are going to have an event where you guys can come and the students come to work on that. So I would suggest don't work on it yet. Just start gathering the papers you need, which is your taxes. So FAFSA usually opens October 1st. Don't rush. A lot of people have been told falsely that if you don't apply right away, you don't get any money. Like I said, the priority deadline is January 15th. That is not October 1st. If you mess up on the FAFSA and you have to redo it, there is a chance you will essentially get audited. Basically, they'll ask you for a lot more information and a lot more paperwork. The more times you have to submit the FAFSA, the more times you may be chosen for that process, which is called verification. So it's best to complete the FAFSA one time and complete it accurately to avoid getting basically audited. And that's a big hassle. So what can I do now for financial aid? So even if you are undocumented, you need to file taxes for 2020 for your student to be allowed to get any free money from the government. If you don't file your taxes for 2020, your student is not eligible for any free money from the government, no matter how much or how little you make. So it is very important that you have your taxes from 2020. If you have not filed them yet, you can still file them. I have had parents file late and their student was able to get that financial aid money. So right now, make sure you know where your 2020 income tax forms are and talk with your student about family contributions. I've had some heartbroken students before who didn't get any financial aid and their parents didn't have any money saved up for them, and it was a huge shock. So have that conversation with your student about, do you have money that you can contribute, or could you contribute monthly when they're in college? It's really important. So scholarships. All good scholarships require essays. If the scholarship doesn't have an essay, it's not a good scholarship. You can use the same essay a lot of times for multiple scholarships. So once they have a good one written, then that makes it a lot easier. I send emails, I post on Teams, I let the kids know about different scholarships. And then once they complete the senior survey, if I know certain things like, oh, they want to be an engineer or something, and I see an engineering scholarship, I'll reach out to them personally. So one more word about financial aid. Most students whose families make above 60,000 for a family of 4 are not eligible for need-based aid from colleges. That means they will only be given loans. I will go way more into detail into this in our financial aid parent meeting, but basically you can qualify for grants, which they don't have to pay back, or loans, which they do have to pay back, or both. Now, there are some colleges like Rice and the University of Texas that have higher limits, like $100,000, and they will provide aid to students whose families make under 100. Students whose families aren't eligible for the financial scholarships can be eligible for academic or specialty scholarships. I had a student who made a very high SAT score. His parents made a large amount of money, and when he applied to U of H, they offered him $5,000 a year because of his SAT score. So that was a big help to his parents, And so even though he didn't get any other grants, he got that big chunk. Again, talk to your, this should be a family decision when it comes to money for college. Um, they do have payment plans where they may divide up like a $6,000 semester tuition into 3 payments that are due in August, September, and October. So this is something to think about for your family when you think about how to pay for college. Again, I'll go into more depth when I have my financial aid parent meeting. So how does Eastwood help? We have college representative visits. We should be having a college fair in October. I need to get the dates from the company we use for that. Sometimes I provide lessons in advocacy. I am definitely willing to meet with your family to talk about college. I actually love meeting with parents. I feel like we're a team, so it's good when we can actually sit down, student, parent, and myself, and actually talk about your child's options. I also have already been having conferences with students to talk about what their goals are for college. And then, like Ms. Lyra said, we have other partners within the building and industry partners and people that can help as well. So on campus, I haven't updated this, but I'm the counselor. Ms. Dixie used to be the counselor and now has a vice principal type role. And so she actually knows a lot about this as well. Ms. Brooks, our college and career readiness advisor. And we also have Ms. Demetrio, our wraparound specialist who can help. And so there are multiple people on campus who can help. Now I'll open it for questions. I'll stop sharing my screen. You can either say them out loud or also check the chat. I know that's a lot of information to dump on you guys, but I just want to give you as much as possible. Maybe I answered all your questions. Michael, what's the earliest time that we can schedule a meeting with you? If you contact me, I'll set something up probably next week. Tomorrow's kind of crazy. I have a training in the morning, but probably next week would work.
So remember also, guys, that on Monday is our college, it's kind of like our launch for the college application process. Yeah. And so you guys are going to be, the entire senior class is going to be assigned one of the 5 adults that I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting. And so, for example, Miss Stanley will have a group of, let's say, 20 to 25 seniors that are assigned to her. You will be given a pass with a time that you come down to talk to her or to whoever you're assigned to of the 5 adults. That adult will sit down with you one-on-one and walk you through the entire process, ask you what you've started so far, and then guide you on any questions you have, give you some action steps if you haven't started at all, or maybe you have started and you're missing some documents or what have you. It's just a one-on-one kind of initial check-in, and then we plan to do this regularly throughout the year so that you always have someone to go to. So don't feel like you only can talk to Miss Stanley. It's going to be Miss Stanley, Raj with Momentum Education, Elvira Marquez, who's on the call right now, Miss Cynthia Brooks, and Miss Demetrio. They will all be assigned a group of seniors on Monday, this coming Monday. And so you'll have some time one-on-one with those adults to go through the whole process and ask any questions you have that are specific to your situation.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Lyra, for that reminder. I should have mentioned that. But yes, every student will have a chance to meet with someone on Monday for at least a few minutes to kind of get started with the process. And they'll basically have about 45 minutes or more to work on college applications. Students can ask to be dismissed from some of their other classes, or if they have a study lab or off campus, they're welcome to come to the application workshop multiple times during the day to try to get some applications finished. Another thing is I am here to help, and like Ms. Lyra said, there's a few of us that are helping, but the best thing your child can do is to contact me. So we do have to chase after kids sometimes, and keep trying to get them to apply. But the best thing your kid can do is say, hey, can I meet with you? Or hey, I need help with this. The more your child can advocate for themselves, the more I'll be able to help them. Sometimes we get busy with other things, and if I have it set on my schedule, then I'm going to meet with your child, then it will definitely happen. Okay, good question, Samantha. So she asked, are there any websites or places to look for scholarships? I'm going to be honest, most websites are not great. Most websites have what I call sweepstakes scholarships. So essentially, they'll say you can win $500, enter to win, and a student gives a bunch of their personal information, and then that company sells it to advertising companies. And so basically, then the student gets a bunch of emails and texts and different things from companies, and they may, but probably will not, win $500. So be careful of those kind of scholarships. The best scholarships you're going to find are the ones that I send you. HISD has like a list of scholarships that they send out each month, and they haven't been sending them out, but I can look at old lists because those are actual scholarships that they have found that fit Houston or that fit the kids that we have here and that are good, legit scholarships. And so just be on the lookout for those. If you see a scholarship and you're not sure if it's good or not, you're welcome to run it by me and I can let you know. But I would say best bet is to look at the ones that I send out. Any other questions?